Hello and welcome to the Adobe Twitch channel. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe, and it's my pleasure to stream to you live here on this beautiful Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time. For the next couple of hours, we're going to be talking about mobile apps and some of the things that are possible, some of the things that have come out since the last time I talked about mobile apps. The mobile apps are always changing, always getting updated, always having lots of little nuances and features added to them along the way. So I figured it'd be a good time to catch you up on what's possible. Now, I realize that there will be people in the audience that are watching, that are using iOS, and I realize there are people in the audience watching using Android. I will try to do my best and talk about the difference of what's available on which platform when it's appropriate. I will be demonstrating and doing everything on iOS because simply that's just what I use. And if there's something that's not on Android yet, I will mention it. There are some apps that aren't on Android yet. But for the most part, most of what I will be doing, at least a lot of what I will be doing, is cross-platform. At least half of it, some of it, much of it. I don't know yet. We'll see. So with that said, if you're watching the replay of this or the video on demand, thanks for watching the replay and the video on demand. This is a live show that happens on Tuesdays and Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern till noon Eastern. And therefore, I am talking to people live in my chat, which is in my screen right off to my left here. So if I say something like, good morning, John, good morning, Eunice, good morning, the nipping dog, or yeah, that's the nipping, the snipping dog. If I say things like that, I'm talking to people live. So if you say, well, who's he talking to and how come he's not talking to me? Instead of watching the recording, join us live whenever you can. The Adobe Twitch channel is running practically 24 hours a day, more like 17 hours a day. From sun up to sundown Pacific time, and there at sometimes the wee hours of the morning. And there are people streaming creative processes here live every day, 7 days a week. So there's always something to watch on the Twitch channel when you're not watching the replay. So if you can't make my show live, that's understandable. But whenever you have time, head over to the Adobe Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Adobe and watch live. Hello, Renee. Hello, Jeff. I said hello, John, earlier. So hello, Skyhook. Thanks for hosting us. And with that said, let me talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. Now, it's very easy, and I have to always pull myself back. It's very easy for me to get sucked in and start talking about the photography apps and spending all my time there. Like I could spend the next 2 hours just on Lightroom Mobile alone. And sometimes I say, well, just skip talking about those and jump into some of the other apps first. And if I do that, there are going to be times where I'm going to be pulling in things from the Lightroom Mobile part of it that won't make sense unless I at least explain Lightroom Mobile to the new people first. So I'm going to spend as short a time as possible up front talking about Lightroom Mobile, the thing I could talk about for 2 hours, and then come back to it later on after I've covered some of the other apps so that we have a feel for people that want to know more about Lightroom Mobile can actually learn more about that. So I don't want to suck up all the time, the whole 2 hours up front, talking about one or two apps. I'd rather spend time talking about a little bit of each app and then come back and spend more time on photography if that's what people want. All right, so with that said, I'm going to be toggling back and forth between, I have my iPhone 7 Plus right there, and I have my iPad Pro down there, and my iPad Pro is the one that's connected right now, so let me see, we'll bring that up, we'll start with that. Let's bring it around this way, and I'll show you the screen in just a second here. I want to turn off, silence those notification pop-up thingies, and I also want to just check to make sure I'm signed in and in the right collection, and it looks like I am. Okay, all is well on Lightroom Mobile. Okay. So, and here, let me bring it up in the computer too, so you guys will be able to see it on screen. And I've got to remember to switch the stream over to this camera as well, but let me bring this up first. And we'll do it this way. New, oops. New. And we'll switch over to that device. All right, so we got the device up now. Just do one more thing over there. All right, so let me switch cameras. And I'll put this down for a second. Switch cameras, and that way you guys will be able to see what I'm doing. All right, let's go to this camera first. Okay, first and foremost, I'll start off with just where I am on the desktop and what I'm doing on the desktop, and then we'll go straight into mobile. So like I said, I could spend the entire time just talking about the photography aspect of it, but I want to get into some of the other things that people can do. However, since in more cases than not, when I get into another app, I'm going to want to bring in a photo, it might make sense to show you where those photos are coming from. Now, even if you're not a photographer, even if you're not a Lightroom user, even if you don't know anything about Lightroom, that's okay. You can still bring in photos from your regular device. You can bring them in from your camera roll. You can bring them in from many of the apps support, even Dropbox, and some of them even support bringing in your images from Facebook. So you can bring in your images from a variety of different sources. However, I am a photographer, so therefore my images are in Lightroom, and that is where I will be pulling them from. So it will make sense if I at least show you the setup first, and then we can dive in and take a look at some of the apps and where the images will come from. So for example, I'm here in Lightroom on the desktop, and as a Creative Cloud member, I get the added benefit of being able to sync collections, which are, think of them as albums if you don't know what Lightroom is, with Lightroom Mobile. So syncing smart previews up to the cloud. Now, I can pick and choose which collections I want. I can sync as many collections, as many photos as I want. There is no limit. There is no gigabyte limit. There is no number of photo limit. So I know with a lot of cloud services, you're limited to 1,000 photos, or you're limited to 500 megabytes or a terabyte or whatever it is. Lightroom Mobile, as it stands, has no physical customer limit. If you want to sync 100,000 photos, you can sync 100,000 photos. It is not taking away from your Creative Cloud space. In other words, the average Creative Cloud member has either 2 or 20 gigabytes of space, depending on if you're free or paid. It does not impact that space at all. And I guess it would be 20 gigs. Well, it depends. All right, but anyway, it does not impact that space at all, no matter how much space you have. So here on the left-hand side, for example, I showed this example, I think, once before, where we edited some of the pictures here from Iceland. I used some of the pictures, I think, in one of my broadcasts before to show Adobe Spark. And so I created this collection called, and I just gave it the name A Iceland Spark, just the A would put it at the top of the list, so I wouldn't have to look for it. That's the only reason it has the A there, because it is in alphabetical order. And the little sync symbol to the left of it means that I have just clicked the box and told it to sync that collection with Lightroom Mobile. So whenever you see that little left and right sync symbol, that means that that collection is syncing. And then if you ever want to stop syncing it, you just click again to take the mark away, and those images will be removed from Lightroom Mobile. They'll still be in your Lightroom catalog, but they'll be removed from Lightroom Mobile on all your devices and the web. So that's where my images start. So we'll probably grab some images from that collection. I'm going to attempt to do maybe a retouch in Adobe Photoshop Fix. So we'll grab some images from this collection. I know we retouched several of these on my last stream. We kind of got off on like at the last minute started talking about this image, but maybe I'll bring that image up in Photoshop Fix and we'll talk about that. So that's where the images come from. Now, like for example, every image in this collection was shot with my DSLR. It was shot professionally with my professional camera while I was tethered to Lightroom on my laptop, and the images, the raw images, were coming into Lightroom as I was shooting. So this, up until this point, had nothing to do with mobile. As soon as I dropped these particular images in this collection and synced it with Lightroom Mobile, what Lightroom did is it took this, for example, let's grab one of the raw files here. It took this 4,912 by 7,360 image, which is a 36 megapixel file, and it made a smart preview on the fly, which is 2,048 pixels instead of the 7,036. So it made a smaller version of it, and that's what it synced up to Lightroom Mobile, so that I would not have to spend all my time just syncing the raw files. All right, so that's the way Lightroom Mobile works when you're bringing images in from the desktop. Now, there are occasions, for example, I think I've got one here. If I go down and I click on that and I go here, I made a new collection called iPhone 7 Plus. And these are images that I captured using either the iOS camera in iOS 10, or I captured them in the Lightroom app's camera in Lightroom. And these are images that I captured, and they are 12 megapixel images from that camera. And those 12 megapixel images synced back up to Lightroom Mobile and back down to my desktop in their full resolution. So that way I don't, welcome from the Sudan, and glad you're able to attend live. What was that size again? Which size? When you say that size, I've given out like 3 sizes. If you're talking about the Smart Preview, it's 2,048 pixels on the longest edge. But anyway, so in this case, when you're bringing it in from out in the field, from a mobile device, from a smartphone, from a tablet, from a whatever you captured it with on mobile, that does sync the full resolution up to Lightroom Mobile and then back down to your desktop. So your desktop always has the high res, in other words, or the full res, I should say. In other words, the images that came in from my DSLR, they're full 36 megapixel raw files, are always on my desktop. And the images that came in from mobile, whatever that device can do, are always on my desktop. What syncs from the desktop up to Lightroom Mobile, if it didn't exist already on Lightroom Mobile, are Smart Previews. So I hope that's not too confusing, but that's the way it works. So your desktop, in other words, is always whole. It's always the place where I would say all the real files exist. It's where all the originals exist is probably a better way to put it. Whether they came from the field out with a mobile device or whether they came from your DSLR that you imported into Lightroom Mobile, tethering, importing, however you got them in, those are always the ones on your desktop. All right, so those are the images that are up in the cloud, up in Lightroom Mobile, and of course still on my desktop. So even if I wasn't connected to the internet, the originals are here. I can always work on the originals. So that's where the images come from. Now, any adjustments I make, no matter where I make them, if it's a Lightroom adjustment, I should say, whether I make it here on the desktop, on a mobile device, Android, iOS, whatever, or on the web, because Lightroom is also available on the web, wherever I make those adjustments, those non-destructive adjustments are synced to Lightroom Mobile. So for example, and by the way, and they're propagated throughout. So if I make an adjustment here and I go look at it on my phone, the phone image will be adjusted as well. If I make an adjustment on the phone and I come back here, the desktop image will be adjusted, but they're all non-destructive. So I can always go back and remove the adjustment or readjust based on my liking. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back to this one. Now I'm actually going to move this collection. I'm going to move it into my demo folder. So that's really what it is. All right, so let's close that. All right, we'll go back to the demo folder. Okay, so here's the collection. Here are all the images we have to play with. Now let's go out on mobile and play. And I'm not sure why my airport utility just popped up, but let's go out and play. All right, so let's start off with something for social media. Let's do an Adobe Spark post for social. And I like Spark Post because it's kind of one of those apps everyone has a use for one way or the other. Whether you're into social media or you just need to create images for other uses with images and text, and you're not a designer, that's where Adobe Post comes in, because it's somewhat template driven, but you're still able to customize pretty much everything in the app to your liking. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my iPad here. And let me make sure I've got Adobe Post signed in as well. I do. And there are my posts. Good. And we'll go to remix. Remix these posts or create your own. Okay. All right, so let me bring this up so you guys can see it. There we go. And I'll quit out of it and go back in so you guys can kind of get an idea of what this looks like. So let me go back to the app view here. So I'm on my iPad Pro, and Adobe Post, this is one of those where it is currently iOS or web only. And so that means it's not available as an app on Android. However, it is available as a web browser app. So even if you don't own a mobile device, you can just go to the web browser to spark.adobe.com and do everything I'm doing right now. So typically, I would do this on my iPhone because that's usually what I'm using to post to social media. I'm doing it on the iPad today because, I don't know, haven't done it on the iPad with Spark Post before. And it's also a bigger screen. So, for example, I'm going to go ahead and just tap on my Adobe folder. In my Adobe folder, you can see the 3 Spark apps on the left-hand side. So there's Spark Page, Spark Post, and Spark Video. So Spark Post is that app I was talking about. It's for letting you use your pictures and put text on them and style it in a very compelling, nice design way without you having to be a designer. So let's go to Spark Post. And this is what I meant by it feels like it's template driven, because the first thing you're presented with are a bunch of Spark posts that you can remix. So that's why they don't call it templates, they call it remixing. Now, you can just scroll through the ones that are here, or you can go up to the top, or depending on which device you're on, or maybe it's on the side. But anyway, you can go to the categories. So for example, I can go to seasonal, and this will show me usually holiday-based things or seasonal-based things. So I see something for Mother's Day, I see Memorial Day, I see Father's Day, I see Spring Forward, St. Patrick's Day. So these are all, again, you don't have to think about, well, I'm not doing something for Father's Day. What you're really looking at is, do I like that design to start with? You can change the text to say whatever you want. But do I like the design? So what you're really looking for, and it's seasonal, meaning maybe you are trying to create something for one of these seasons or one of these holidays, and therefore it'll give you some inspiration, something to start with. But even if you're not, and you just like the design, and you're gonna change the picture, you're gonna change what it says, but you like the way it looks, then go for it. Remix that, even though what you're about to do has nothing to do with, say, Father's Day. So if I go back, here's one for crafts, for people that make stuff. Here's one for business, people that are doing something business related. And again, these are just designs. These are not necessarily, you can only use these for travel, for example. Ooh, Spark Post just quit on me. You're not just using, for example, these just for travel. You can use it for whatever you want. You're just picking the design you like. And here's one for food, or some for food, and of course lifestyle probably has the biggest assortment. All right, so let's pick one. Let's go back to travel, since I do like to travel. And let's look at some of the travel designs or as they come up. And I'll start with one of these. Ooh, I like the African safari one as is, but I'm going to go ahead and go with something else. Let's go with... All right, I'm going to go with this one that says El Capitan. Even though what I'm going to do has nothing to do with El Capitan, has nothing to do with mountains, it has nothing to do with any of this, I just like the design of it. Hey, Star Crunch, what's going on? All right, so you notice it was blurry for a second, and it took a few seconds to come in. That was it downloading like everything. And sorry about this, folks. I'm just going to move it over. That was it downloading the assets so that I would be ready to go. All right, so at this point, and I'm just looking to see what it's trying to warn me about over there. One of my airports is flaking out or has an update. Okay, so now I want to use this design, or at least start with this design, even though I'm not going to use that text, I'm not going to use that photo, but I like the design. So I can go remix, and basically what that will now do is make this editable. It'll basically put it in a mode to where I could edit it. So it still looks like it's probably downloading the photo, even though I'm not going to use it. But there it is. Okay, so now at this point, everything's fair game. You can do whatever. Yes, I don't want to watch a video. You can do whatever you want. So if I say, hey, I like that text, maybe I'll change it, but I also want to just move it up. You can move stuff around. You can do whatever you want. Maybe I also want to rotate it. You could rotate it around if you wanted to. You can pretty much do whatever you need to do. So the first thing for me is, before I can move on and worry about the text, I want to get the right photo in there. So I'm going to go, first let me get out of the text. Go ahead and lock that in. Okay, so now I can, you notice at the bottom, there's theme, palette, photo, and animation. And I know what you're probably thinking was, he wants to replace the photo, doesn't he just tap on photo? And unfortunately, no, that's to style the photo. So at the top, there are three icons. One for, look, it looks like it's changing the orientation, which is, I'll get into that in a second. The middle one looks like an image placeholder, and the last one looks like text. So those are the three that actually modify or add more content. So for example, let's grab a new photo first. So I can change the background. And since this is also a broadcast about what's new, one of the things that's been added to Spark Post since the last time I showed it is sometimes people don't necessarily want a photo. Sometimes they just want a solid background. So solid color is new. You don't have to have a photo if you don't want a photo. You can just have a solid color, and we've made that a lot easier for you to do. Just pick a solid color and away you go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and tap out of that. All right, so I do want to use a photo, so I'm going to go up here, and instead of using a solid color, look at my choices. I can go to my photo library, which means show me everything that's on this iPad in the camera roll. Let me grab one from one of my iOS albums. I can go to the camera on this device and take a picture right now. Just bring it up, tap the picture, and then that becomes the picture for my background. If I'm not a photographer, I don't have the perfect photo, but I don't want to use mountains, I can search for free photos. Search for photos that are royalty-free that I can use, and I don't have to worry about the rights to have them in this particular layout. So that will let me search for whatever it is I want to search for, icebergs or trees or whatever you're looking for. You can search for royalty-free photos and bring those in. And then the last two, Lightroom, which is the one we talked about earlier, and Creative Cloud means let me grab it from one of my Creative Cloud sources, like my Creative Cloud folder, like a Dropbox. Maybe I have a folder there. So Eunice is saying, Spark Post seems like a good tool to develop a brochure or business cards. I got a better tool for that. Think of this, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say a brochure or business cards, because there is a better free tool for doing both of those. This might be a good one for a flyer, for a one-page thing. But a brochure, that can be kind of iffy because usually a brochure means you're going to have something printed. Business cards, same thing. You're going to have something printed. So think of this as very low res for the web. It's not really designed for high res printing. If you're just going to post your business card on the web, fine. If you're going to post your brochure on the web, fine. This is great for that. But I got a better tool to show you. Matter of fact, thanks. I'll show it after this so you can kind of compare the two. All right, but anyway, let's go to Lightroom. And so right now it's signing it or looking at my account, bringing up all my collections. There's my Iceland. That's why I put the A there, A Iceland Spark. So it would put it at the top of the list, and here come all the photos that are in that collection. So it is reading them from the cloud, bringing them in, letting me see which ones are which, and then I can go and pick whichever one I want. Let's see here. Let's see what I can grab. All right, let's grab some blue ice here. Let's grab this one. Let's see if I have to wait for it to load before it'll let me grab it. All right, there it comes. Okay, so now the blue ice came in, and there's something I want to highlight. This is something that I didn't even know about early on when Spark, or back then it was called Adobe Post, came out. Well, B. Dungan, I'm glad to be back, and thanks for that. I didn't realize this when Adobe Post, which is now Spark Post, first came out, is that it not only lets you use these designs, but when you bring in a photo, whether it's yours or one you grab from Free Search, it creates a color palette based on that photo by default, just right off the bat. Hey, LC Finch, what's going on? So if I go to palette, these are the color palettes. The first one is the one it picked from the photo. And then, of course, I can choose any color palette I want. Now, if I just keep tapping the color palette from the photo, watch what happens. And you can see these colors in that ice picture behind. So that's where it's kind of styling everything based on the colors from that photo. And that's kind of like a little trivia about Spark Post. So I'm going to cancel out of that. So it kind of gives me a color palette that it's detecting or pulling from the photos, very much like Adobe Color does today. All right, so now I've got my got my photo in the background. And the next thing I might want to do is start changing the type. It's Tuesday morning. I don't have anything creative to say. But let's say that we want to change this to be, instead of El Capitan, we're going to say, I'm going to show you how non-creative I am today. It's Tuesday on Twitch. There we go. That's how non-creative I am. And I'm holding my iPad in my hand. I could use the keyboard that's attached to the bottom of it. I'm just not using it because then I'd have to set it down somewhere. But yeah, you're more than welcome to use your device keyboard. All right, so Tuesday on Twitch. And then I can go to the next text frame and change that to whatever I want to say too. So I could change this to say Adobe Mobile Apps with, all right, let's do it right, at Terry L. White. And then we'll do our 10. I know nothing's more exciting than watching someone type AM Eastern Time. All right, done. All right, so that becomes our little text down here. We can then go put that wherever we want. So now you'll also notice that it brought it in. It brought this original template in a square format, a one-to-one format. And that's because the roots from Adobe Post, back when it was first even starting to be developed, Is this an Apple app? No, it's an Adobe app called Adobe Spark Post. Back when this particular app was first conceived, it was back in the days when Instagram was only square. So all the templates started out being, or all the remix designs started out being square. And so with that said, as soon as a Spark Post came out, I think it came out right after Instagram went to non-square format or right before it. So it took the team a while to go back and redevelop it or fix it so that you didn't have to just use square templates. And they did it in a very clever way, because even though you might start out with one aspect ratio, that doesn't mean you have to stick to it. So I said I would get back to this icon in a minute, and that's the one in the upper left corner. So this top left one next to the image one, when I tap that, notice it says resize, and then look at the bottom. So social post Instagram was the original choice. That was pretty much, you didn't have a choice. That was all you got. Now you can recompose this any way you want, and it will still do the right thing with your text, the background image, and any other borders or things you've done. So for example, I could go to the original image format. That was what the original image was in. I can go back to square and look at what it's doing. I can go to Facebook. That's what a Facebook post would look like. Go to Twitter, a Twitter post or banner. That's what a banner on Twitter would look like. This is what it would look like for Pinterest. Facebook ad, blog post, Facebook cover, which is very skinny across the top. So it's doing the right things without creating white space or doing something weird that you would have to fix manually. It's adjusting based on any of these that you tap. YouTube thumbnail, which is, again, this is what I mean by, even though you're not going to maybe post this directly to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, let's say you're not in a social, you can still use it for other reasons. So instead of a social profile, let's go to just standard formats. Maybe I want something clever for my next video, the front of my next video. I can go to 16:9. And then that will I can basically now use Spark Post just to make the openings for my videos. So that's a 16:9 aspect ratio, so it'll handle 1080p, 4K, well actually probably not 4K. It depends on the resolution. I don't know. But it'll handle 1080p, 720p, no problem. And of course, you can change this to any aspect ratio you want that doesn't necessarily have to tie into a social post. So 16:9 would be great if I were going to do a video, 4:3 if I was going to put it on the front of a photo slideshow. So I've used Spark Post in a lot of cases just for something else that I'm doing to get me a good image, to produce a good image with the text on it that I want. So let's go back. And let's say that I want the original aspect ratio of the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and just tap OK on that. And the next thing you'll notice is that I now get the ability, and by the way, let's address the elephant on the screen. You notice that there's a watermark that says hashtag Adobe Spark. And that's great to advertise that you love Adobe Spark, but maybe you don't want that hashtag Adobe Spark there. So there is a way to get rid of it. No, you don't have to pay. There's no in-app purchase or anything to get rid of it. There's one simple thing you have to do. You have to share. And you don't really even have to share it, but they want you to share that that you're using Spark Post one time, and it will remove the watermark forever. So if I say share and cancel, it was going to create an email that I could send out to anyone or just even myself. And then I learned I don't even have to send it. Just bring it up and get out of it. And now that watermark is turned off. And actually, I wish there was a way to sometimes toggle it back on, because as an Adobe employee, sometimes I do want to say that this was created with Spark Post, but once it's gone, it's gone. That's it. I have no way to get that back. The only way I would get it back is to, I'd have to do it manually. I have to create one manually, which I could do by tapping the A icon up here. So this is another icon where you can add a new text frame. So I could say, hashtag Adobe Spark. All right, done. And then I can, of course, size that down and put that wherever I want. All right. So you don't have to have that watermark. You can tap, share it if you want, or just don't share it, and then that gets rid of it forever. And now you've got your design ready to go. But what if you don't like your design? So this is what I meant by this is a great tool for non-designers. Non-designers typically are afraid or don't have good skills when it comes to a blank page. Like, in other words, oh my God, you bring up Photoshop with no image open, or Illustrator or InDesign, and all you have is a blank page. Panic. The heart starts beating faster because you don't know what to do next. But usually, if you have a good eye, you're just not good at starting from scratch. You're like, you might be like me, where although I can do things from scratch, I don't like to do things from scratch, but I do know what I like when I see it. And if you're the kind of person that knows what you like when you see it, you're going to love this next thing. And it's what I call, I don't know the technical name for it, but I call it the design wheel, or I can't make up my mind wheel until I see it. It's the third icon at the very bottom. It looks like a little wheel with a dot on it. I'm going to tap it, and it brings up a little wheel with a dot on it. And it even just showed me what happens. It showed me a little animation to spin for explore style suggestions. So this wheel, you just keep spinning it and spinning it and spinning it until you see one you like and you let go. So for example, if I spin, oh, and by the way, it's styling just that one thing. So it's styling until I see one I like, and then I let go and I can tap on it. Now, if I tap on Tuesday on Twitch, same thing, design wheel. And that Tuesday on Twitch had that background to it. So as soon as I turned the wheel, it got rid of that background because it's showing me different designs now. And some of them have backgrounds that are going in different directions. Ooh, I kind of like that one. Now, I like that one. I just don't like the color of it. So we'll get to that in a second. But let's say I like what I see so far, almost. So I'll say okay. And keep in mind that you still have a color palette. So I can still go in and switch the color palette to maybe one I do like better, which I think was going to be that one. All right, so again, using the design wheel to get me almost there, in this case, and then I just finished it myself. And then last, because now we can't see this, we'll use the design wheel one more time, or whatever this is really called. And I can keep twirling that around until I get to what I like. Kind of like that. Okay, I like that, but it needs something else. So we'll say okay. What it needs is something that bring it out from the ice. Now I can move it around. I could say, well, we put it over here, over here, over here. Would it be easier to see? And really it wouldn't. What it needs is another shape behind it. So I could pick a shape to put behind it. These are not really good choices so far. Maybe I want that shape, but a different color. We'll use a little contrast here, something to make it set off a little bit. Now I like it, but I don't like necessarily the size of it. So let's bring it down a little bit. And then of course, maybe I don't like it over there. Now I like it better over there. Pull that over as well. That'll be a subtle thing off to the side. So now I'm just really nitpicking this to my heart's content, but you get the idea. So starting off with that Yosemite or that El Capitan or template to kind of get me going because I like the way it started. I've come up with something totally different in this app, and now I'm ready to go. So at this point, if I'm done, my next option, and I'll show you one more option in a second, but my next option would be, if I like this the way it is, then is there a transparency feature? Yes, there is. Let me go back. Let's say, for example, and you can see it right there, it's called opacity. you can lower the opacity. So yes, there's a transparency feature. Like so. Okay, so if I like this, now my next option would be to tap the share icon in the upper right hand corner. So once I tap the share icon, I get my standard share sheet in iOS, and I can share this any way I want, including just simply saving the image to my camera roll. And save it to my camera roll, and now that image, yes, you can access my camera roll, and now that image is there on my camera roll to do whatever I want to do with, or I could have shared it right to social media. Extremely small on your end, so sorry about that, but yes, it's there. All right, so that would be a static post. Now, there's one more thing. In the bottom right corner, you notice that there's an animation icon. If I tap animation, you can actually have an animated GIF or video. I think it's just video. I had to check. I think it's just video at this point. But you can have an animated thing happen. So where it zooms in this case, or where it grows. And you don't get to pick, unfortunately, you don't get to pick and choose what does what. It's basically just based on the template. So this was one you don't really get a lot of flexibility over picking and choosing and filling in exactly what you want to happen. But it's pretty cool the way it works. So that one just goes from gray to color, which is kind of nice. I like this one where it changes the focus of it. Sorry about that, folks. My display says you're not doing anything and went to sleep. All right. Color, where it animates the color, and fill, where it just fills in the image. So any one of those can be used as your animation for this design. I think I like the gray to color because it's subtle. I like the focus, which is also subtle, so I'll pick one of those. And now when I go to share that, those are my choices. So I can share, I thought animated GIF wasn't there at this point, but I can share it as a video. If you're on iOS, you can, which you would be if you're using this iPad app, you can also share it even as a live photo. So you know how your iPhone 6S and 7 has live photo feature? This becomes a live photo on the camera roll, which is kind of cool. Or just the image with no animation. So you can have the animation for video, or you can have just the still version of it for everything else and share it either way. So if I say share that as a video, it's creating a video of that and then putting that video right on my camera roll. So that's, and then of course I can save the video. Now I can save the video any way I want. So I created the video, I can share it on social media, save the video to the camera roll. Ask me later. And that's Adobe Spark Post. So that's my favorite way to quickly come up with something for social media, or a banner for something, or to put on the front end of something else or the tail end of something else without having to start with a blank page. That's technically what I use it for. However, Eunice brought up earlier in the chat, well, hey, this looks like it'd be good for business cards and brochures, or brochures and business cards. And I kind of cautioned away from that because that image that I exported to the camera roll is going to not be high res enough to make a business card or make something printed. It's really, this whole app is really designed for posting things that will just be seen on screen, whether it's on the web or a slideshow or whatever. So let's go back. Those are my posts, by the way. Okay, got it. And we can go back to Remix. So this is Adobe Spark Post, and I haven't seen any urgent questions come up. So let's get out of this real quick. And let's go to the next app, and hang on for a second. Let me just make sure everything's set up and working here. Sometimes if I hadn't signed in an app on a certain device in a long time, it wants me to sign in. Or it's got something else weird on the screen. All right. All right, we'll leave it as is. Okay, so let's switch back to yeah, we'll leave it. Okay. Switch back to the iPad. Okay, so this next app, let me go up, is in the upper right corner. It's Adobe Comp CC. Now, the difference is Spark, Spark Post, Spark Page, and Spark Video on the left-hand side are iOS apps, but they're also completely functional as web browser apps as well. In other words, if you're on your desktop and you want to make a Spark post just like I did, you would just go to spark.adobe.com and go to the post, create a new post, remix. I don't think you can do remix yet. I can't remember. All right, but remix or not, and then do your Spark post. So Spark Post, Spark Page, and Spark Video can be done on iOS or the web. Adobe Comp CC is, at this point, only iOS. And when I say at this point, the apps have been coming out on Android as quickly as the teams can get them ready for Android. So that's why I say at this point, if you're watching this and it comes out tomorrow, then the video's already out of date. All right, but anyway, Comp CC is your design tool for whether you're doing something for print, screen, or whatever else there is. I can't think of the third one. Print, mobile, video, whatever it would be. So think of it, it's almost like having InDesign on my iPad or my iPhone, because it's also available on the phone. The idea, and the reason it was called Comp, is because the idea would be that you might be sitting with a client, sitting with someone who you're brainstorming with, and you come up with an idea, but you don't want to do it on a napkin or a scratch pad or a piece of paper, and then have to go back to your computer 6 hours later when you get back to your office, only to not remember everything that was said, or you didn't write it down just right, and then you have to, even if you did write it down just right, you have to do it all from scratch to create it. And then they're like, oh, that's not what I thought, and whatever. So this way, with you pull out your iPad, your iPhone, and you could actually start comping things up complete with your mobile device. But the difference is what you make in Comp can be sent to the desktop fully editable. So if I make a business card, for example, in Comp, and maybe that's a good example. I don't think I've done a business card in Comp. So since you brought up business card, Eunice, we'll use that as an example. If I wanted to do a business card, I could lay out the business card here in Comp. And once I kind of like it, or I'm getting close, or I'm even there, I could send it to my desktop and have it open in InDesign, Photoshop, or Illustrator CC, whichever way I want to continue or finish it. So if I go to Comp CC, that's the last layout I worked on for a users group I attended a couple weeks ago. But on the left-hand side, there's a plus sign. And so if I tap the plus sign, now you'll see where you get all your different media sizes. So there's one for my recents at the top. Then there's one for devices. That was the third one I couldn't remember. So if you're trying to design something, that you're trying to mock up something how it would look on an Apple Watch, an iPhone, iPad, or whatever, you could do that right here. You have your print formats, and there's one for business card already set up. And then you have web. So let's say I tap, and by the way, if you don't see a size you like, then you can just go ahead and, let's see, is it under more? No, it's not under more. There is a create your own. I don't see the create your own. I lost the create your own. Cancel. Hang on, maybe it's under here. More. Well, I don't see there was a way. There was a way to add your own format. Oh, I didn't scroll. Sorry. All right. So if you scroll down, scroll down, it's under new format. And new format will let you specify whatever size you want. All right. So there's, as you can see, there's some for social already built in as well. So by the way, even that in and of itself, this app has come a long way, because when I first started using it, there were some sizes for print, some sizes for web, and that was pretty much it. It didn't even have a social category. and it had your custom ones that you had done. So I created one called Facebook banner before there was a Facebook cover photo choice. So I had created my own format down there. But you get the idea. These are all formats that are ready to go if you want to start designing with one of those. And we said we're going to do a business card. So let's go to business card and tap business card. That will load up a very small page, because business cards are small, a standard US 3.5 by 2-inch business card. Okay. Now, if you wanted a vertical business card or some other size or something like that, that's when you cancel out of this and go back and create your own custom format the way you want. So the sizes you get are the sizes there are. If you want something different, you make your own. So now at this point, this is the, oh my God, a blank page. What do I do now? This is the difference. You don't start remixing a design. You start with a blank page. That's it. This is all you get. So it's up to you now to decide where you want things. Now, you can decide that one of two ways. You can either use gestures, and here I'll bring up another camera here so you can see. You can either use gestures to show how, or here, let me bring this, I guess it's close enough. I'll show you the gesture here. You can bring up the gestures. You can use gestures or just grab stuff from the top right corner using the right icon. So let's say I want to put a photo on the left side of the business card. I'll just draw an X. So just using my finger, I created that X and it automatically made a placeholder. If I want to now put a title or a line of type to the right, near the top, I just draw a line, put a dot next to it, and it knows to make that type. So as you can see, I'm just using my finger to do these gestures. Of course, if you have an iPad Pro, you can use an Apple Pencil as well. And it knows how to make the gestures based on how you draw your finger. So if I draw a square, it will make it into a perfect rectangle. If I don't like it, I can, oops, yeah, that may have changed. Let's delete that. If I want, here's a kind of a comp tip. If I want 3 things to be the exact same size, or 4 things or 5 things, whatever, then draw them quickly one right after another. So for example, if I draw a square, oops, draw a square. Before I give it a chance to finish rendering the first one, it will create the other 2 exactly the same and even select them so I can move them together. So, and here I'll trash those. So you can create these objects just using your finger, or you can just go grab objects from the top right if you don't want to bother with gestures. If I want a paragraph of text, then I draw 3 lines and a dot. And then it knows to make a paragraph. You notice it also puts a size thingy on the left-hand side, so I can make that whatever size I want. So maybe this is going to be the name of the company. That's going to be the address and phone number and all that stuff. And then we want one more, maybe a title there for the person's name. We'll make that smaller. All right, and yeah, you'll be able to specify font size and all that. I haven't gotten that far yet. You can, of course, also draw things like circles. And now, there's a difference. If you draw just the shape, then it is just a shape. So that's just a circle. I can make it whatever color I want. I can size it. But that's all it is. If I draw anything with an X in it, then it knows to make that a placeholder. So for example, if I draw a circle with an X in it, then it knows that's going to be an image. That's not just a shape. And again, I can size that any way I want. All right, so we'll put that like right there. Okay. So I can pick up these objects. I can move them around. Now the big glaring question is, well, Terry, I'm new to this. How do I know what I can draw and what I can't draw? I didn't know about the circle. I didn't know about the X. I didn't know about any of that. How do I learn what the app lets me draw and what it does and doesn't do? And my answer would be, you just have to know. No kidding. You don't just have to know. It's built in. There's actually help. So if I go to the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner, at the very bottom, there's drawing gesture help. And this will show you all the gestures that are possible. So square, circle, rounded rectangle would be a rectangle and you draw a circle around one of the corners. Triangle, image, image, circular image, polygon, headline, so forth and so on. So some of them have multiple gestures for the same thing. So for example, like image and image either just with an X or image with a square with an X. They're going to yield the same result. Erase is what I was trying to do a minute ago, where you can scribble and it will erase an object, but I think it was because I had the object still selected. Grab styles, that's a new one. Circle with a dot in it. Duplicate, plus sign, that's a new one. So some of these are like new even since the last time I looked. Duplicate wasn't there always, and grab styles wasn't there always, because the latest update lets you now copy styles of one thing to another. And that's new in the latest version of Comp CC. All right. So again, if you're just joining me, this is Adobe Comp CC, and we're laying out a prospective business card. We put our placeholders down now. Now it's time to go get the content or change the placeholders to be what we want them to actually be. So on the left-hand side, I placed an image placeholder so I can tap on it. And now, of course, it's time to go out and get the actual image that's going to be placed in it. So I would grab that now from the very bottom image button. And same choices. Do I want to get an image that's on the camera roll on my iPad? Do I want to get an image that I want to take a photo with the camera? Do I want to get one from my files? Do I want to get one from, in my files, by the way, and I wish the mobile teams would be consistent on this, because Spark post said Lightroom. Comp says it gives a CC logo, my files, which you'd also go there for Lightroom. And notice there's a My Libraries choice in the upper right corner. Some of them have libraries separate out. Some of them it puts it in Creative Cloud. It just, every app is a little different with how you access your Creative Cloud folder, your libraries, and your Lightroom catalog, or Lightroom collections. And of course, Adobe Stock, because you can actually use Adobe Stock inside of Comp CC. So if you want to use a stock image instead of one that you took, you can use Adobe Stock. All right, so if I go to My Files, that's where it brings up Lightroom. And you notice there's a choice for My Files, so I can bring up my Photoshop sketches, my Illustrator line drawings, my Illustrator draw drawings, or my Lightroom photos. So we're going to go to Lightroom Photos. We're going to go back to Spark. And because those are the photos we've been playing with so far. And we'll just pick one of the waterfalls. All right, we'll use that one. And that brings it in and places it into that frame perfectly. Now, the circular frame does what you might expect. If I go grab an image to use there, it'll take me right back to the same spot. Thankfully, it comes up a little quicker. And let's see here. Oh, you know what? Let's use a picture of Rufus. I saw Rufus there. We can use one for my compositing thing here. Rufus looking mean, as usual. Kidding. Rufus is a nice guy. All right, so we'll grab the picture of Rufus, but I don't like the placement of it. So I can double tap and adjust the image inside the circle. There we go. All right, and it crops it to a perfect circle. Okay, so now we've got the photo on the left, the person's picture on the right, we have some text placeholders in the middle, and now you can go ahead and make your card design any way you want. So if I want to change this to be whatever it should say, and we can call this, we'll make a Twitch business card. We'll call this Twitching Inc. That'll be the name of our company. Now, of course, I'm making this more text than I have room for. That's okay. I'll fix it in a minute. And we'll say INC Inc. All right, so now that I made that more text than I had room for, I just tap on that frame again. The little handle is off to the right-hand side. And I just pull down on that handle to size that down. Now, I typically don't worry about the size until I've got the font that I want, but just to show you That's how you would adjust the size if you want. And so we'll just say this is Rufus. Rufus D, because I always screw up spelling his last name. So we're going to go with Rufus D for now. And here we would go with our address, 123. Everybody's located at 123 Main Street. It's a popular address in every city. Of course, that would be, your city, any town. And since I'm in Georgia right now, any town, Georgia, 30303. All right. And the phone number, 404, that popular phone number that everyone likes to call, 555-1212. All right. So, you get the idea. Oh, can't change the color of text. I'm a dummy. Okay. That was a weird comment, but yes, you can change the color of text. I'm not sure what you meant by that, but yeah, you can change the color of text. It's down there on the left-hand side. I'm not there yet, though. All right, like I said, before I worry about the color or the size or anything with the text, I want to make sure I got my fonts right. And this is one of the things I love about Comp, because most apps, like even Spark Post, I didn't get into it, but there were some abilities to change the fonts. But again, it's giving you a set of choices. You can use this font, this font, this font, this font, or this font. That's it. Or Comp gives you a choice of your typekit fonts. So for example, if we go to Twitching Ink, it defaults to a typekit font called Source Sans Pro. But if I go to Source Sans Pro, I can see some other fonts here. And these are just other fonts I have used in the past. So I can use any of the same fonts I'm using in typekit on the desktop. So if I wanted to change it to, for example, Azu Sans Uber Regular, that's why I don't worry about the size until I get the font right, because I just have to keep changing it. Then I can. So in this case, maybe I want to bring the photo down and I want to make this bigger so that we have more room for the name of the company. Come on. Oop. There we go. All right. And smart guides help me keep everything aligned. And let's align it that way too. All right. So I've got the name of the company. Why is there an extra dot in there? Hang on. That should be a comma. There we go. Twitching Ink. And let's go ahead and change the type for this. Let's go ahead and change this. Instead of Source Sans Pro, let's use something light. How about Railway? Railway. Now, notice I have a cloud icon because that means I have not used this font in Comp before, so it's not downloaded. So I can go ahead and say download that font or sync that font and then use that font. And that becomes the style for that. Now I can then say, okay, you know what? His name doesn't need to be that big anymore. And I don't know if this will work, but let's see if that will work now. No, I don't know how to paste the style once I copy it. All right. There's supposed to be a way to copy the styles now and then paste them. Let's see if there was a paste style choice that I missed. Grab the style, but then how do you apply the style? Okay. All right, we'll do it the hard way since I don't know. Let's see. Copy styles. Let me try this one more time. I just want to see if this works. Copy all styles. Oh, tap an object to apply. Perfect. All right, that's what I was trying to do. So that way I didn't have to constantly go back and forth and do that from scratch. All right, so I've got the style in place. I've got the type in place. And now, Black Brush Jones is asking about type color. Now it's time to change the color. So if I go ahead and go back to the Twitching Ink On the bottom left, that big black dot is where I can go change the color. Now I can use any color in the spectrum. So I can just simply dial this up and pick whatever. Sorry about that, folks. My display keeps wanting to go to sleep because I'm not actively using it. All right, but anyway, I can pick any color in the spectrum I want to change that to. That's one way. I can save that color if I want. I can go to the built-in themes, and these are the themes that just come with comp. So you can just scroll through these themes, and if you see a color you like, you can use that color. More importantly, you can also use the color themes you have saved in your Creative Cloud libraries, the ones you've been using on your desktop. So if you have a color theme for this company, let's say it's the blues here, or the blues and grays and black, I can use their corporate color that I always use for everything else. So that way I know I'm using the right color because I'm not mixing it on the fly, I'm not guessing, I'm using one of the color themes that I've done in the past with working with that company. All right, so there we go. And you know what? I do want to make one more change to the font on this. Railway thin, not railway, but the actual thin part. I want to make that regular instead. All right, there we go. Make that a little thicker. All right, so now we've got our type color, our type font, our images. But here's the problem with business cards, and this is just a general problem most people have. They always make things on business cards bigger than they actually need to be because, especially if you get older, your eyes are saying, oh, that looks very readable now. But you got to remember, I zoomed this thing way up too. So I want to check the size to see what it actually is. So that's 9-point type. That's on the large size, believe it or not, for business cards. So I'm going to bring it down to 8. And on this, let's see what this is. This is probably also 9. And I'll also bring that down to 8. Let's see what this is. That's 14. Let's try bringing that down to 12. All right, actually that screws up my my alignment though, so I'll leave it at 14. Okay, so I got my business card done. Let's say I'm ready to go. So at this point, I think it was Eunice that brought this up from the, what's another great way to develop a color scheme is from an image. Yes, you can develop a color scheme from an image as well. Adobe Color lets you do that. The other thing that we can do now that we got this business card in place is we can go in and now choose what to do with it. So if I just want to say, hey client, look at this, do you like it? Then I can go to my share icon and I can even share a PDF now. This is new. If I want to share it as just a static image, I can share it as an image, save it to the camera roll. And also what's new is the ability to share it with a link so they actually get a link to go look at it. That's new. Matter of fact, I've not tried that one yet. So if I want to share it with a link and tweet it out, let's see what it does. It's where the Jeopardy music comes in the background. Please wait while I upload all this and create a link. So apparently that would be hosted by Adobe. I see a little wheel spinning in the upper right corner, so it is doing something, which probably means it's uploading this as an image to be able to share. And then the person will get to be able to look at it on the web with a link. I'm not sure it was worth the wait, though. We'll see. All right, any other questions on Comp CC before we move on? There's one more thing I want to show you after we get done with the business card and Comp, then we'll move on to another app. But any questions while we're waiting for this thing to spin? And I apologize for the slowness of my upload speed. Any questions on Comp or Post? Now would be the time. All right, there we go. And here comes that long link. All right, but anyway, that would be the link that it would create. I could post to, here's a link of a new project made with Adobe Comp CC. And of course, you could change that text to whatever you want it to say, but it would then give you a link that you could share. All right, I'm going to cancel that. Like I said, I knew it wouldn't be worth the wait. More importantly, is that let's say I'm sitting with a client, we put this together, they love it because they're sitting there watching me do it, and they're making changes with me along the way. Now we're ready to go home and print, or we're ready to go to print. Can you color the background? Well, just like in InDesign, if you want a color background, you would put a shape there with a color in it. So, and by the way, that brings up an interesting point. Let's say B. Dungan is my client, and he says, hey, I would love it if it had just a light color background. And I'm like, oh crap, I've done all this already. How do I put something in the background? You don't change the color of the paper because that's just not the way it works. What I could do is this. Let's make a frame the size of the card. All right. Now I got this frame the size of the card. Let's go ahead and change its color. And we'll use the same theme from the same company. And we'll also choose to lower the opacity. Now that's still not what I want because that's still sitting on top of everything. I just want to get the opacity lowered. Now that I lower the opacity, I want to change the stacking order. I want that to be now sent to the back. So I could go to my, okay, stroke. I was going to say, what's that? All right, let's go here. And notice I have a slider for stacking order. Right now it's on top of everything. I slide it all the way to the back. So now that's still there, and it's still too dark. So now I can go ahead and continue lowering the opacity of it to maybe something right in there. All right, so now that becomes my business card with a color in the background. Any tips on finding your own style design without flat out copying someone else's layout preset? I don't really have any tips. I mean, I didn't copy anything here. I kind of just did this on the fly off the top of my head. But here's the problem. People have been doing design for hundreds of years. So the thought that you will come up with something that's never been done before is going to be rare. That's going to be almost impossible because just about everything you can think of that's been put on a page has been put on a page before in a certain way. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's going to be hard. So I wouldn't look at it as copying someone's idea other than sometimes I look at other people's work to get ideas. Not necessarily copying what they did, but just it will start my creative process flowing to say, oh yeah, I like that color yellow. I would have never thought to use yellow in that way. And then I go do my own thing. So that would be one of the ways I would say, even though you're looking at someone else's design, you're not necessarily copying it per se, you're using it for inspiration. And and don't think designers don't do that all day long. Designers are always looking at other people's work to get ideas and concepts. And I wouldn't say they flat out copy, but a lot of design is copied. Let's be honest. A lot of design is flat out looking at something and tweaking it a little so it's your own, but they really did start with someone else's idea. And you will develop your own style. You will develop your own thing. You will take an idea you saw and switch it up enough to where it is your own, to where you're doing things that weren't a part of that original idea. So like I said, I call it inspiration, not copying. Now, if you just flat out open it and lay everything out letter for letter, word for word, or not even word for word, but pixel for pixel, then that is a copy. But if you look at it and say, oh, I like that idea, maybe I would put a border next to that picture and I would, have the picture upside down or something crazy, or tilt it at an angle. Let's say we did something like this. I don't know that can I just tilt that? Yeah. Tilt that at an angle. Yeah, let's lower the opacity of that. And let's do that thing. Yeah, now that's something new. That's something that wasn't the original idea. So there are all kinds of ways to start with an idea and then make it your own. Okay, so let's say that is the card. Now what are my choices? Notice that there's a send to InDesign, send to Photoshop, send to Illustrator, and even a send to Muse. That's right. I forgot that Comp CC can even make a Muse web design from scratch and open it up. It'll open up in Muse as a web page or master page, I can't remember, but a web page that's ready to go with anything you want to change or publish. All right, so let's say we want to send this to InDesign, because honestly, if I were doing business cards, that is where I would do them. And away we go. So what it's doing right now in the upper right corner, it just finished making this a InDesign compatible file. Now the time it will take for it to sync it and launch InDesign, which I already see InDesign launching, so this happened very quickly. I didn't touch it. I didn't touch my computer. You saw my hands. It's synced it up to Creative Cloud, synced it back down to my desktop, and automatically opened up InDesign, so that, which wasn't open, by the way, which I could now continue working on. So to bring up the design in just a second here, I'm going to put the iPad down for a second. And I'll expand this out to be the full size of the window here. There we go. And here it is, ready to continue. So everything is editable. So if I want to change the type, change the color, change the photo, change the design, it's all here. Spell checking Anytown, so I could turn off the spelling if I don't want, or add Anytown to the dictionary, either way. Oh, hang on, I didn't really mean to do that, but we'll go ahead and add it. All right, so now we've got our text and everything ready to go. So at this point, I could now tweak or do anything else I want to do and really send this over to my printing service to have this printed as a high-res business card. The photo's here in a frame. I can still move the photo around in the frame. It's still all there. The text is there, and it knows what, if I go to the type thing here, it knows what font it is because it used my Typekit available font, so it synced those fonts even if I wasn't using them already. Railway Thin at 8 point is already here. Railway Regular at 8 point is already here. And this at 14 point, Azul Sans Uber is already here. So that, Eunice, if you want to do business cards and brochures on your mobile device, I'd say do it in Comp. Post is great for exactly what it was intended for, on-screen posts. What's the direct link to Terry's reruns? terrywhite.tv. That will take you to my YouTube channel, which you will find just my reruns. If you want to see, they're not separated out here on Twitch, so it would be twitch.tv/adobe/profile to see everyone's reruns, but mine aren't singled out that way. All right, and if I turn off the guides, hitting the letter W, that shows me the full size of the card without any non-printing items ready to go. From the, okay, if I want to print this directly from the app, can I set its bleeding and margins and rules to it? No. Well, yes and no. No. Mostly no. Because, at least I don't think there is a way to do that. Only because iOS doesn't really have the way to turn on or off automatic bleeds and all that in the printing process, in the UI. So in that case, the way around it would be to create the old way we used to do it before we could do it in the app, was to create a page slightly larger than the page you needed and then just set everything over. So for example, if I wanted this card to bleed to the edge, a 3.5 or 3.5 by 2 inch business card would technically be maybe 3.75 by 2.25. I would make the paper size that big and then create guides in it to be the actual size of the business card if you really wanted to print it from your iOS device. So that would be the way around it, which is the old workaround we used to use back in the day anyway. Yeah, I can't think of another way that would be automated to do it that way. You're welcome, Eunice. Let's see. Yep, someone's already done the past broadcast bit.ly. So it's bit.ly/past broadcast. Wow, I'm surprised that wasn't taken. All right. I don't see any other questions or comments. So, and here, let me get that camera out of the way. That's the way the card really looks without my hands in the way. And that's in InDesign on my desktop, ready to do. Now, at this point, then I really could go back to my document setup. And I really could add a bleed to this page and have everything printed properly. But if you want to do it directly from the device, that'd be a little tricky. Not impossible, just you'd have to do a little work to make the paper size the right size so that when it cut down, it would be the size of a business card. All right. I think that's it for, oh, I said I was going to do one more thing in Comp. So the one more thing I was going to do is just show off kind of a cool new feature in Comp. Let's go, let me switch back to where you can see it. All right. So I'm in Comp. I'm going to go ahead and close the business card. I'm done with it. And I don't remember what size this is. Let me look. This is just something I was experimenting with when I was talking to that users group. And my former user group. As a matter of fact, Rafus, there you are. There's a picture of you. My Michigan users group, I went back and visited a couple weeks ago. Let me see what paper size this is. Okay, great. This is letter size. If you're using a standard, there's a few standard paper sizes and web sizes, or mobile size. I should say mobile sizes, not web. If you're using one of those, then you have another share option. Your other share option will be, and it's a new one called Auto Mockups. And it's just a simple thing that lets you look at what your design would look like in, let's say, a real, yes, you see you, Rafus. Let you see what your design looks like in a real environment. So, for example, if I go to Auto Mockups, this is an 8.5 by 11 on a desk or bench or whatever that is. So it's just kind of a cool way to see what your design would really look like in the real world. If I go make one, here, let's do one real quick. Let's go make another one, and I make it for a device size. Let's say, I haven't done this one yet. Let's say an iPhone 6 Plus. And we'll just go ahead and make an image there. And we'll make some text there. And then we'll just put something in that image frame. All right. Sorry, I just can't have it be sample type. False. And we'll make that nice and big. And center it. And choose a different font. Font I've never used, and away we go. Okay, and of course you could change the color. All right, so now that I've got this ready to go, if I do my share Auto Mockups, it'll show it to me on an iPhone 6 Plus, laying on a table or whatever. So that's what I meant by these auto mockups are kind of fun, and they are even shareable as is. So if you're trying to give your prospective client or friend or colleague an idea of what their design is really going to look like out in the wild, the auto mockups are a pretty cool way to do it. You can swipe also and see two different ones. If the auto mockup has two different ones or more, you can see what they look like. So auto mockups is also fairly new and kind of cool. All right. So that is Adobe Comp CC. All right. Since I've been giving so much attention in these last, at least two apps to iOS, I want to talk about one that's available on Android as well. So let's talk about Capture CC. Capture CC is also one of my favorite apps. I don't use it as much as I should, but Capture CC is awesome. So Capture CC, available on iOS and Android, feature parity, feature complete. And what this app is really good for is starting the process of your design. Or I'm sorry, not your design, but your assets. So if I go to Capture CC, I can capture one of, I think, 5 different things. I can capture shapes, patterns, colors, brushes, or looks. So for example, what's that? Okay. So for example, if I go to, here we'll switch libraries here. I think I have a Twitch library. Yep, Twitch. All right. There's a shape that I did the very first time I showed Capture, using Capture in a shape. And it's basically the shape of a vegetable or fruit or whatever that is. I think it's a pear. And I think it was plastic anyway, so it didn't matter. Some patterns, some colors, some brushes, and looks. So let's talk about each one. So when you want to capture is sweet, CC is sweet, Capture is the best. So those are people, unsolicited testimonies in the chat there. If I go to shape, and I don't, so it's one of those cases, whenever we do a shape demo, unless you planned it, you don't ever have anything cool to get a shape from. So this will be a perfect example. I don't have anything around me that would make a good shape. Let's see here if I can find something quick. Like absolutely nothing. All right, but anyway, I'll bring up the camera just to show you how it works. I don't have anything cool, but if I go tap the plus sign, my camera is blocked by the case in the back there. There's a light stand. Ooh, that's exciting. Let's go. Oh, well, I can't show you this. Let's say I want just the handle from the light stand. All right, so one of the handles. So I'll go ahead and tap the shutter there. And now I've captured the whole thing. So one of the new things, and this used to drive me crazy with Capture, is because you could select and deselect, but if something was connected to the thing you wanted, you either got it or you didn't. And that's it. So now there's an actual erase feature, which I love. So I can say, nope, I don't want any of that. Don't bother, don't waste my time getting any of this. All I want is the little knobby thing there. And of course, probably more precise to use your Apple Pencil if you have one. All right, there we go. So I can get rid of all that stuff I don't need, and then crop down to just what I need. All right. And it looks like it's going to turn out very badly, but let's see what happens. And I just go next. And it basically created this vector drawing from what I just told it to capture. So that smoothing now is a choice to be on or off, so you can take your pick. I kind of like smoothing on in this case. And that becomes my new knob that I didn't have to draw from scratch. I can go next, and we can save this with whatever name we want to give it. And save it to that library. And now that object is in my library everywhere. So not just in Capture CC, it's in all my other mobile apps that use libraries. And more importantly, it's on my desktop in any apps that use libraries. So if I want to bring this into Illustrator, bring this into InDesign, bring this into Photoshop, bring this into Muse, that knob has now been created and ready to go. So that's Capture CC on iOS and Android as a free app. So that's shapes. Patterns is probably, of all of these, I was going to say my favorite. It's probably my second favorite. Colors is the one I probably use the most. But patterns is pretty cool, and it's really primarily for use with Photoshop. So for example, and I've shown this before, let's see if we got some. And in really pattern, you don't have to have anything cool. It could be just about anything. So we'll tap the plus sign, brings up the camera. Let me move the keyboard out of the way. And you can grab whatever you want. In this case, it could be my iPhone sitting there, or you know what? Ooh, I know what I want a pattern from. Hang on, let me cover that up for a second. I have my ear pods here. I'll put the ear pods on the table just right. All right, let's see if we can get the good pattern from those. Get in really close there. Now on the left-hand side, I've got different pattern making abilities. I'm going to say something like that. Different styles. And you would have never guessed that you can see it in the actual pattern, but you would have never guessed that that was from a set of ear pods sitting on the table. Of course, you can rotate this, which will give you a different look to your pattern, so that's kind of cool. I think I like something like that a little better. And your pattern is seamless. That's the other thing I like about it. So you don't have to worry about did you cut it on or off at the right edge. It automatically makes it seamless. So I can go next. Gives me a preview of what my pattern looks like. If I don't like it, I can go back and continue editing it. But I do like it, so let's go next. And we're going to call this one, instead of pattern 4, we'll call it ear pods. All right, so that's another new pattern ready to go that's now been synced to my library. What? Earplugs? Yeah, earplugs. So cool. I know. It's crazy. That's the thing about Capture and making patterns. You can make the coolest patterns out of stuff that you would have never thought would have been a cool pattern. And all of these things that are here now, these patterns that you're looking at now, except for the one on the right really is bad. But the other two are just from weird objects just happen to be around me at the time I was trying to make a pattern. All right, so let's go to colors. Okay, good. We got 26 minutes left because I want to show you what some of this looks like once you get back to the desktop. Now, colors is pretty basic, pretty simple. What it'll allow you to do is take either a photo, and you know what? I'm going to bring up a photo. Let's see if I can do this. All right, here's what I want to do. I want to bring this side by side. I think you'll get it. It'll be more useful if you can see it from an actual photo. So let's bring up a photo here. All right, yeah, we'll bring up this one. I just want to make this one bigger. Yeah, it won't let me do both at the same time. All right, we'll make it a loop view, and we'll just turn off everything. All right, now let's go there. All right, so I want to get the colors from that photograph since I don't have anything cool around me in the room. All right, so what I'm going to do is same thing, tap the plus sign. It's trying to detect colors from the back of my keyboard cover. And now I'm going to expose the camera to that photo. And it's doing a photo in a photo. All right, but as you can see, it's letting me get the photo colors that are there. And now, if I don't like where a particular dot is, you can tap and literally freeze and pick up whatever colors you want by dragging the dots around. So I can say, well, I kind of want some of that green, maybe a lighter shade of this, and maybe a darker shade of that. And that becomes your new color theme. So it's a lot more useful, of course, when you do things from, the outside world or your surrounding areas. I'm just in a room where I don't really have a lot of colors in this room to pick from. But I'll show you my streaming room. And we'll just say, faked it. Because that's what we did. Faked it. Save color thing. All right, we'll do one more. Yes, I know. We'll do one more. And this is kind of what the streaming room looks like. So there's your chatting going on over there. And we'll just say that we want to use those colors instead. And then it will pick from that photo. And we'll say that we want to make this, I don't want to make it discoverable, by the way. We'll say that we want to make this one streaming room. Streaming, close enough. All right, so we save that. So these color themes are now in this library for me to be able to use in any of my other applications. So if I want to use this in Comp CC like we did before, I can use these colors for my type or my objects or whatever I want to use the colors for. If I want to use them in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, use whatever, Premiere, After Effects, whatever I want, it's there as well. Now brushes. Brushes are kind of fun. They are for literally taking an object like shape and patterns did and turning it into a usable brush. So for example, I can go to the plus sign. I can grab a photo that I've already used, or just take a photo now. So if I go to Creative Cloud, instead of going to Files, I can go to Lightroom. And I can go to View Collections. And I can now say that I want, all right, we'll make a Justina brush. All right, we have a person that's singled out a silhouette here. Or not a silhouette, but singled out. So we'll make a brush out of Justina. All right, so that becomes my image that I want to open. And I can, of course, adjust the background. In other words, take out as much of the background as I can get away with without making her transparent. I can also, that's about right. Once I snap this, then I can also choose to crop. And of course, your brushes don't have to be people. They can be any object you want. But then these are the different styles of brush that I could have. So for example, if I choose to make this a Photoshop sketch brush, I can choose if it just repeats or stretches. Now stretching looks weird because we're not quite there yet. Let's edit this. And let's give her a head and a tail. So probably something like that. So the body basically is the dress. All right, so now we'll say done. And what this would look like is this. So you get the idea. And yes, you could do that if you really were inclined to. So you can have a lot of fun with people brushes. It's long legs on that brush. Well, now we just made her, give her an extra long torso. All right, so she could be very tall, very short. Oh, the short one's very funny. But you get the idea. So that would become a brush that I could use in Photoshop Sketch in this case. All right. Too much fun. All right, so we'll go ahead and say we want to save that brush. We'll leave the name brush 5 for now. Save, and that becomes a new brush that I could use in another app called Photoshop Sketch. Yep, you could brush all your dogs. Giraffe brush will look funny. Yep, you guys are getting the idea. You can have a blast with brushes. Now looks, I'll explain this quickly. A look is something that we take for granted now when we watch TV and watch movies. It used to be a time where a video production company would just go out and shoot a movie, and they would try and get this great location and have great acting and great scenes and great special effects, and that would be it. Now, in addition to all of that, it has to also have a certain mood or look to it. So, for example, I watch Game of Thrones. I watch The Walking Dead. I watch shows like that, and it's not just where they're cast. It's also the overall look to the video. Like when they're outside in the Game of Thrones, especially at the castles in the north and all that, everything has a blue tint to it. Everything looks extra cold because they're making it look extra cold by applying a tint to the whole video or a look to the whole video. So looks in Capture CC can be used the same way. You can use a look in Premiere Pro for video. You can use it in Premiere Clip on your iOS or Android device. You can use it in Photoshop. You can use your looks in Photoshop as well. So what a look allows me to do, and here we'll sample one. We'll just get one from a photo. Same thing, Creative Cloud, Lightroom Photos. We'll go back to that same spot. And of course, a lot of these were taken in the middle of the day, but here's one that was taken at sunrise. So this has a certain look to it. It has that mystical, this is the way it looked first thing in the morning, sunrise, early sun, orange sky coming up. And now I can go ahead and open that file. And now what it's allowing me to do is pick, or showing me the color theme here, and I can go ahead and say, yep, I want to capture that. And then I can see what it would look like. Here's the original. I'm tapping. I'm just holding down. That's what the original looks like. And here's what it looks like with that early morning sunrise look to it. Now I've got different ones at the bottom I can see. So it basically just like colors, is just picking different colors from that sunrise that I could choose from. So I wanted to cool it off, I could use that. Wanted to make it neutral, I could use that. Or make it much warmer, I can use this. Now I can also see it on top of your own photo if you want, or your own video. So that here again, that's before, holding my finger down on it. That's after the look has been applied to it. Before, after. So looks are equally important, especially in film, especially in video, when you're trying to create a mood. Because this is, desert, dull day. But adding that warm tint to it just gives it a whole different feel, a whole different look to it. Might even make people a little happier. All right, so let's go next. And we can call this sunrise. All right, that would be the look we give it. All right, and it's showing me I can use this in Premiere Pro. So I've gone through the 5 areas of Capture CC. There's one thing I didn't do, even though you can do it. If you take a picture in one of the modules, let's say I took a picture of the knob over there I use for shape. If I want to use that picture in pattern, in color, in brush, in looks, you can. You can reuse the same picture. You don't have to take a new picture every single time. So that was added as one of the features in the latest version of, later versions of Capture CC. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left, so let's head to the desktop and let's take a look at all the stuff we just created. So I'm going to put the mobile device down for a second. Head back to the desktop, bring back my panels in Lightroom, and let's pop over to Photoshop. Because Lightroom doesn't have CC libraries, it doesn't really need them. Since you're not really compositing or adding things from another object into Lightroom. All right, anyway, we've got our Photoshop open, Photoshop CC desktop open. I'm bringing up the libraries panel, and I'm going to go ahead and switch to that Twitch library. So in the Twitch library, I've got the streaming. I've got the faked it colors. Remember these? We just made that one called faked it. We made that one called streaming. If I scroll down here, there's the knob that we created. This all synced to the same library. Here's the Justina brush. Now notice it's grayed out because I didn't make it a Photoshop brush. I made it a Photoshop sketch brush. So that particular brush is grayed out because I can't really use it here in Photoshop. And if I scroll down to the patterns, there's the earpods pattern and there's the sunrise look. So everything I just made in Capture is now immediately available to me, if it's compatible, in my desktop apps. So let me show you an example of the pattern since we're here. Let's go ahead and open up this fashion woman here. This is an Adobe stock photo. And what I can do with the pattern, with the earpods pattern, is just simply drag it over. Now when I drag it over, that's like, oh my God, what are you doing? That's crazy looking. Don't worry. You can scale it down. You can make it 1%, which is too small. So let's go something like 5%. All right, great. And now, and notice it's seamless. So no matter how big this image is, and thanks, B. Duncan. I'm glad you like what you saw today, and you like the Iceland photos, and have a great time at the fair. All right, but anyway, you can make this whatever size you want. So let's say we want to make it 3%. It's probably a little better. We'll click OK, and that becomes a pattern layer on top of this. So now I could, let's see what that looks like. What I want to do is I want to go to this mask that it created next to it and just hit Command I to invert the mask. And I'm going to lower the opacity of the fill of that layer to, I don't know, let's start at 49%. And then I'll use my stylus with a regular paintbrush. There we go. And we'll just start painting that in. So basically using that pattern as a design element to style part of my photo, like so. There we go. All right, so that's just one use for patterns. And keep in mind that is a separate pattern layer, so if I get some of this wrong, I can always go back and unmask or remask and delete it or start over or do whatever I want. I'm not really affecting the actual dress underneath. I'm just mimicking what this pattern would look like if it were inside. So again, I can go in, that's too strong. Lower the opacity some more to maybe something like that. And get some pretty cool effects this way. Using something that came from the iPad camera. Oh my God, no, don't use that camera. That camera sucks. No, just kidding. Don't use it to take pictures at events, but use it to capture stuff. That's okay. All right. Just playing around. And if I got too much, just switch to black and unmask it around that edge there. But you get the idea. All right. Patterns. Who would have thought? Earpods in a dress. Who would have thunk it? All right, so that's patterns. What else did we do? We did a look. So we can actually apply a look to this as well. Oh, not to the pattern, no. Let's do it to that. And I don't know if I need to do it from the lookup table thingy. Oh, what do I want? Oh, yeah, I know what I want. I never remember what icon it is. Color balance, photo filter, channel mixer, not invert. Oh, where's the thing I want? I want the adjustment layer that's going to, is it this one? Is it this one? No, this isn't the one that I want. Oh, I can never remember where it is. There is a way to apply that look. To choose it actually from the lookup tables. Yeah, I'm drawing a complete blank on where it is. Victoria, you know where that is. Where is it? Where's the lookup table thingy? All right. I forgot. It's here. I just can't remember where it is. See, I forget at times too. When you don't do something every day. Ah, there it is. Color lookup. All right. Found it the hard way. Maybe this isn't it. Test. This might. Oh, there it is. Yeah, this is it. Okay. I found it. I found it. All right. No, 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 no. No, no, no. No, no, no. There's a way to pick the one you already have. Where is it? There's a way to pick the one you already have, and I'm blowing it. But anyway, it would start here in the lookup table. And I don't know why I can't use the one from my library. All right, this is all pilot error, by the way. But anyway, there's a way to do it. I'm drawing a blank on what it is, but you can actually use the lookup from your captured look. You were disconnected for a second. That's okay. Victoria, I'm just looking at how to apply the look that I already captured in Capture CC, and I'm drawing a blank on where it is. We only got 6 minutes left, so if we don't figure it out, we'll come back to it if we figure it out. If not, we'll move on. So let's see. We didn't do a look, but the look's there. Pattern. Colors obviously are colors. So if you type something, yes, the mobile apps do rock. And let's say we want to say the word fashion. We can lock that in. And then if I want to use one of the colors for my Fake It color, pick color theme, I can just use one of those colors. So again, these were captured in the Capture CC app, and these colors are available to me to use for whatever. Oh, I kind of like that one. To use for whatever I want. All right. Again, I don't get to use a brush that the brush I just created, but here's an example of a brush that I created earlier. Here, let's go here. Let's make a new layer. And we'll grab the brush tool. Yeah, it's in my library, but how do I apply it to the photo? Yeah, I see it in the library. There we go. And these are little blue Terry Whites as a scatter brush captured from Capture CC. So again, for the person that said, hey, how do I make a design my own? I guarantee this would be something new. You wouldn't have a design with Terry White brushes scattered around your design. That's never been done before. So there's always a way. All right, so that's using a brush, not the brush I just captured, but a brush I captured previously. And the Photoshop brushes, unlike the sketch brushes, come in as black and white. So you're basically applying the color, whatever your foreground color is, to the brush. And so you can use that brush any size you want. So if I want a smaller version of it, I just use my left bracket key to make the brush as small as I want it to be, or there we go, some smaller Terry Whites floating around there, or as large as I want it to be. And since I did that on its own layer, poof, it's all gone. All right, let's see, what else didn't we do? We did the, shape. So the shape is basically a shape. It comes in as a shape that you can do whatever you want to do with it. So you can use your shapes as design elements as well. I know what you're thinking. Now you want to do a knob, double click it, Victoria says. You want to use a knob pattern. I can imagine. Oh, you're right. Okay, Victoria. Yay, Victoria saved the day right at the nick of time. I was trying everything to bring in my color lookup, dragging it over, doing everything. All you have to do is double click on it. And there it is, the color lookup. We can get rid of the test one. There's that. Yes, I want to delete it. There's that look of the warm sunrise applied to the photo. And actually, it warms her skin up kind of nicely. A little too orange, but you could tone that down a bit just by lowering the opacity of it. So that would just, if you're trying to make a scene a little warmer, we just did it. All right, so that was the one missing piece. I wasn't double clicking. I was trying dragging, dropping everywhere, but sometimes it's just as simple as a double click. So here's one that gives it a rustic look. Here's one that's my mountain valley look. Here's one that's the look of my microphone. So you can have color lookups or color looks that you apply in Photoshop that you captured on your Android or iOS devices. All right, looks like we're just about out of time here. Suzanne's up next. We had some fun with mobile apps, and as usual, we never get to all of them. I never even got to Photoshop Fix. So we'll continue this on Friday. We'll pick up where we left off. So we'll do some of the other apps that we didn't get a chance to talk about today. We'll do Photoshop Fix. We'll do maybe even something in Photoshop Mix, which Photoshop Mix is cross-platform. Maybe we'll even do a video project in Premiere Clip, which I have not shown in a long time. It's been a real pleasure watching. It's been a real pleasure being watched. Thank you. Faux 90, what do you need to know? I missed your earlier question. So, and I only have 30 seconds, so if you don't tell me in a 30-second time frame, I'm not going to get it again. You're welcome, Rafus, and thanks for being a part of the demo today. Sitting in the audience, photographed. And by the way, if you one last thing, if you do take that sketch or shape, the one from the knob there, into Illustrator, it is vector, so you can go in and reshape it, recolor it, do whatever you want to do. Yep, stick around for Suzanne. How does it work with the color look with mobile? In mobile, for example, in Premiere Clip is the only one that I know of that takes advantage of it, and you would just tap on it. So it would be in the looks feature in Premiere Clip. I'll show you on Friday, but that's how you'd use it in mobile. All right, so guys, I'm out of time. Thanks, Suzanne. You're up next, and cheers, everybody. Have a good one.